Hello. Let me tell you a story of another adventure I had playing a pen and paper role-playing game. This one is far more recent compared to my previous story, which involved my first adventure. This adventure takes place only a few years back. The game? Pathfinder. The place? The kitchen table of someone I had happened to get roped into a campaign with. Didn't know the DM that well. Dungeon Master, that is to say. But through a series of acquaintances, managed to get into a game. This game has many stories associated with it, but I'm going to share to you the one that lives in perhaps the most infamy. It was the final battle of the campaign. Our party had reached the 20th level, the zenith of character progression. Sans, of course, mythic tier. We're also were partially gestalted. It was complex, convoluted, and I won't get into it. But suffice it to say, we were extremely powerful. All the more so by the fact that most of the party were, I will use the terms Munchkin and Power Gamer, collectively. You know the sort, the kind that mathematically calculate the optimal build for their character. Our party consisted of a goblin who announced his name as Zulf every time. He was a crowd control mage. All of his spells revolved around grease, hideous laughter, and debuffing spells, enervate. His job was to hold the enemy so the rest of us could punch it. He rode about in a giant skeletal construct constructed from one of Dracula's lieutenants who we had slain. I'll tell that story another time. He used it as armor to convey his small goblin self around. The other member of our party was a drow, formerly a drider, but he had gotten better. He had, by this point in the campaign, personally slain Lolth in a one-on-one combat. Yes, he was powerful, capable of dealing multiple thousands of damage with a single crossbow bolt. He was a magus of some category. We also had my wife's character, who was a summoner, of the sort that could blend with her summon and become a powerful gestalt being. My character, Faust, Hunter Faust, at your service, seemed inconsequential next to these. He dressed like a harlequin jester. My wife and I were the tag team of death, the masquerade of death, as it were. She was the sadistic death jester. I was the lighthearted, charismatic fellow who my party relied on to talk their way out of situations where they didn't feel equal to or desiring conflict. Granted, I was no slouch myself. I played a warlock of the Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 persuasion that we had ported in to Pathfinder rules. But, as I said, we draw near to the final battle. Our opponent, a dwarf who had become the head of an organized religion centered around a god. The catch was, this god was permanently in the thrall of this dwarf, so he held the real power. And this dwarf, as most grand enemies do, was poised to unravel all of reality for his own scheme. Naturally, this could not be countenanced, and, well, he was a smug fellow, and so we wanted it badly to fight him. So we enter the fray. I had gone into this fray prepared, you see. I don't know where my staff went off to. Oh well. As I was saying, I had gone to the fray prepared with a small staff, about this length, tucked into my vest pocket. The battle begins. He sicks his god slave upon us, and through a combination of crowd control from Zorf and the rest of us, we managed to defeat it, draining its levels, hampering its abilities, and dealing, quite frankly, inordinate amounts of damage. But then, of course, as we suspected, the dwarf had an ace in the hole. He immediately siphoned all the nascent power of this deity into himself, attaining an apotheosis of godhood of his own right. And unlike his god-slave, he was fully ascended and fully in control of his newfound powers. He immediately started using his godly might to deprive us of our life force, cackling maniacally, as evil villains are apt. I knew this to be the moment of truth. I reached into my pocket, and I pulled out a small black rod about this size. And I shouted up at this towering entity, "Hey you, fathead!" He leans down, glowering. "What?" "Just die." My staff activates. The rest of the party says, "What is this item? We haven't seen it before. What does it do?" First, it fires a empowered mage's disjunction. So what's that do? Well, it strips the target of all magic. It reduces him down to his clothes. "Well, is there a save for this?" they ask. "No," I reply. "No." They're like, "Excellent, we can still fight." And I said, "Wait, I'm not done. This staff fires a sequence of spells in order." Skeptically, they ask, "Well, what's next?" Second, a maximized Enervate spell. He loses 6 levels and all the trappings associated therewith. They reply, this is excellent. He's weaker now. We can best him." "Wait," I said, "a sequence of spells." Thirdly, he is struck with Tasha's hideous laughter, or hideous laughter in Pathfinder. They reply, is there a saving throw for this?" No, I say. "And I'm not done yet." "Then what's next?" Excuse me. It was Irresistible Dance, is what it was. Is what the third one was. It wasn't Hideous Laughter. It was Irresistible Dance. And so they asked me, "Is there a save for this?" And I replied, "Irresistible Dance." The fourth spell that it fired was Waves of Ecstasy. For the children in the audience, I won't get into too much detail as to what that describes, but there's no save for it, and, well, he was rather pleased with the result. The fifth and final spell. At this point, he has been stripped of all magic, reduced by 6 levels, rendered helpless on 2 accounts due to the Waves of Ecstasy and Irresistible Dance. The fifth and final spell opens a gate beneath him to a plane of annihilation. He immediately falls through, cackling and giggling under the influence of my spells, and is no more. The rest of the party looks on in awe. Only the dungeon master knew I possessed this item. And they ask, "What is this? This can't be legal." And I said, "It actually is 100% legal if you have 200,000 gold to expend in the crafting of such an item." And they thought about this for a moment and said, "Well, we're glad you saved it to use on him." "Saved it," I replied. "It has 49 more charges." They asked me to remind them never to get on my bad side. And that is the tale of how I killed God with a remote. Thank you for watching.